This guy, whoever came up with the idea for the movie, he was well in front of the time. Like back in the 90s, I don't think it was a big talked about thing. And you kind of were probably, oh, nice. And off you go. Like, that's weird or whatever, and as I'm watching, I'm like, oh my gosh, like all these things that I'm just now learning about 35 years later were in the movie from messing with electricity and being able to move objects to, when he passed over, seeing his body, kind of outside and then kind of attaching to her when she was saying, like, I feel you still. It's like, I feel you still. My sister felt the same thing. She's like, I feel like Bradley's here. So it was just a different lens.
Welcome to Signs from the Other Side with Fern Ronay. I'm your host, Fern Ronay, and this is the place to share stories of signs and messages received from the other side. Real quick before we get started, if you enjoy reading about signs and if you enjoy fiction like Bridget Jones and Sex and the City, you might enjoy my books, Better in the Morning and Better Believe It. And if you like this podcast, please be sure to rate, review, and subscribe in Apple Podcasts and tell a friend too. Thank you so much for listening, and on to the show. The movie Ghost came out 35 years ago. Can you believe it? In honor of the release, my friend Amber Rasmussen, host of the Next Round podcast, Beautiful Stories from Beyond, and I decided to do a rewatch and a review. Here are our thoughts. So here we are. 35 years ago, Ghost was released in theaters. How has it been 35 years?
I know. I was, obviously we went back and rewatched and everything. So as I was watching it, I was like, how old was I when that movie came out? And I want to date myself, but I was 13 years old. And so it was like, puberty and you falling in love. And I cried. That was probably the most crying I've ever did in a movie besides Titanic. I mean, Ghost was just one of those, bawling. And when I was rewatching, I'm like, I wonder if I'm still going to bawl the same way that I used to. I sniffled, but it wasn't quite the same. But oh my gosh.
It's so funny. I was 15. I also bawled my eyes out and saw it in the movie theater with my friends. We were all hysterically crying. And then I haven't seen it since. And I was like, I wonder if I'm going to cry. I actually did bawl my eyes out. And so I'm like, well, that's still the same. But there were parts that I was like, I was watching it and I'm like, I don't think I'm going to cry the way I did. But then there were parts that just like hit me like a ton of bricks. But we were meant to connect and we were meant to do this. I know. But in case we had needed extra confirmation, I play Wordle every morning. My whole family does. We're like really into it. And so this week I watched Ghost and with my husband watched it with me and we're like obsessed with it. We're like, it really hits you and it hit us. And I'm playing Wordle this morning. And what could you imagine the word is?
Oh, ghost, something
yes.
along is it ghost?
Ghost. It's a 5-letter word. Every day is a different 5-letter word. Of all of the days for the word to be ghost in Wordle, it's today that we're recording this.
If people don't believe in signs, I don't know how you cannot.
How can you not? So then I text my husband and I'm like, you are not going to believe what I saved the screenshot of the text message. I'm like, you're not going to believe what Wordle is today. He was on his way to get coffee. He was still sitting in the car. He ran into the house and he was like, oh my God.
I love it. And especially it's like when you're looking for the signs, or like when you're not looking, but when you're aware of signs, you'll see them everywhere. They really are everywhere. You just have to pay attention.
Yes. And then when it hits you, you're like, what are the chances? Like of all of the things it could be, of all of the words, of all of the days, 365 days a year, they never repeat the same word. Today's the ghost day.
I love that. And I loved the fact too that one of the big moments in this movie was the penny. And I had just interviewed you about the pennies with your grandfather. And I was like, well, isn't that interesting? Because there's so many different signs out there. But interesting enough, there was the penny.
Of all the signs, yes.
Watching it now, because back then I wasn't really spiritual. I hadn't had this awakening and I didn't really think too much of it. And as a 13-year-old, I think I was more into the love story than I was the spiritual aspect of it.
Right.
So now, one of the first things, because I started watching it last night and I finished it this morning, and my boyfriend, he was making breakfast, and I was like, this guy, whoever came up with the idea for the movie, he was well in front of the time. Like back in the 90s, I don't think it was a big talked about thing. And you kind of were probably, oh, nice. And off you go. Like, that's weird or whatever, and as I'm watching, I'm like, oh my gosh, like all these things that I'm just now learning about 35 years later were in the movie, from messing with electricity and being able to move objects to, when he passed over, seeing his body, kind of outside, and then kind of attaching to her when she was saying, like, I feel you still. It's like, I feel you still. My sister felt the same thing. She's like, I feel like Bradley's here. So it was just a different lens for me. What about you?
Yes, yes. It was such a different lens in that, well, particularly when I saw it, I was a young person who was like, okay, bad people go to hell, good people go to heaven. Like that was like, that fit in my world. Like that made sense to me. But watching it now, the bad guy, the two bad guys, the demons, when they pass, come and get them. And when I saw Willie Lopez, the demons come for Willie Lopez, and he was a bad guy, we could call him that. But I was like, real life demons are what made him that way. Like he wasn't born. I don't think people really are born bad. Yeah, there's low vibrational souls, but generally speaking, there were probably demons on earth who made him a demon. And the demons can be poverty and mental illness and addiction that made him the way he was. So I don't think he goes back to demons. I think all souls go to the other side and review their life and all of the mistakes they made, or why they made those mistakes and what they learned from them. So I have a different viewpoint in that sense.
Oh my gosh. Yes. That was actually in my notes. That was one of my last ones. I was like, I'm on board. I'm on board. Yes, yes, yes. And then like that part, I was like, oh no. I feel like that was Hollywood. And I'm sure the people that made the decisions back then, that's what they wanted. You got to go to hell. There's got to be a hell and a heaven. And I think they got it right for the most part with most of it. But that part, I didn't know. I don't think Willie was going to hell. I think he's going to have a good hard look at his missteps, and he's going to probably have to come back to life to redo a few things. Yeah,
he failed. He's got to come back.
Failed miserably, and the best friend too.
So the characters, Carl, I remembered that he was the bad guy. So as I'm watching it, I'm like, oh God, he's so hateable. Like even from the beginning. Oh yeah. The first time I was fooled, but like, yeah. Did you remember him right away?
Yes. Well, first of all, the scene, my little 13-year-old self with the chiseled abs. First scene. I was like,
when they're knocking.
I remember having a crush. And I remember thinking these actors were the perfect people for every single one of those roles. And Carl, like, yes, he's like handsome and you want to hate him.
Yes.
But I don't know. He just played it so well. And Patrick Swayze, again, it's just like he's this soft hearted, and Demi Moore is just so perfect. And her short hair, I loved her short hair. And it's so funny that we were doing this now, because I literally saw an interview probably a month ago when she was talking about Ghost, and she was going through all the different looks she's had over the years. And she said, I actually was hired and I had long hair. And then I just had a baby and I was coming back to film, and I showed up with really short pixie cut, and everyone, the director, the producer, everyone's like, oh my gosh, what did you do? But I'm looking going, no, it's perfect. She needed to have short hair. She needed to be an artist, and the overalls, and oh my gosh, I couldn't imagine that role, Molly, with long hair.
Right. It so worked. It worked perfectly.
Yep.
I could not love Oda Mae Brown more to the point where I told my husband, I think our next cat's going to be named Oda Mae. Yes. Oda Mae Road.
Oh my gosh.
Oda Mae Ronay.
Yes. Well, on that topic too. So I did a little research on the movie, and do you know who else was being considered for Oda Mae?
I can't even picture anyone else.
I know. Okay, so, well, actually, I'll go through all the characters. So for Oda Mae Brown, which was Whoopi Goldberg. Ugh,
Yes.
perfect. They
So
were
perfect.
considering Tina Turner, Patti LaBelle, and Oprah Winfrey.
Wow.
Right?
They're all amazing, but none of them are funny. Like, what made
No.
her so great is she was hysterical.
She is hysterical. I loved it. I loved it so much, but I could never picture anyone else in that role.
At all.
You want to take a guess on who is going to play Patrick Swayze's role?
Oh.
None of these people. I mean, just absolute hard pass no on all of them. Harrison Ford,
No.
weird, no. Michael J. Fox.
I love him, but
I
no,
love
no,
him.
no, no.
Alex P.
No.
Keaton, stay there. Stay
Yes,
in your lane.
yes, exactly.
Right?
Exactly.
Okay, I don't even know if Paul Hogan,
Who's
Crocodile
that?
Dundee. I think that's
Oh,
Crocodile
oh
Dundee.
God.
So weird, right?
So weird.
Tom Hanks.
No.
I love Tom, but
Love him too.
no, he's no.
He's not sexy enough.
No.
Like, he's great, but yeah,
Kevin Bacon.
it wouldn't have worked.
Nope. Kevin Kline. No.
Definitely not.
Alec Baldwin.
No.
No.
He's not
And-
lovable.
No, he's not lovable. And Tom Cruise.
No.
Not the right fit. It's
No, not the right fit. Oh God, I
Isn't
can't
that
picture
crazy?
any of them. That would have made it a flop.
And apparently also Bruce Willis was in the running too to
Oh,
be
that's
with Demi
funny.
Moore.
That's funny, but it just no. Patrick was sexy and had heart in the perfect combination.
Oh.
That all of those that you named, they're great, but not for this.
Yeah.
Yes.
Patrick is one of a
Wow.
kind. And I just wonder now that he's passed, like,
Yes.
I wonder what because I did a little research too on what he believes as far as ghosts and the afterlife and stuff. But he had that perfect blend of ruggedness with soft, like, he wasn't scared to be a dancer. He wasn't scared to be maybe a little bit more feminine and in touch with his whatever. I think that's why he was such a like heartthrob, that he wasn't the best looking guy in the world, but he just had this thing about him. Yeah.
The perfect it factor. What's his beliefs?
So I had to look it up. Swayze had a deep spiritual side throughout his life. He believed in the soul and the afterlife, influenced in part by his mother's spiritual teachings and his own personal experiences. In interviews, he often spoke about believing that there was more than just our physical bodies. And after the death of his father in 1982, Swayze became even more introspective and open to the idea of life after death. And he was quoted as saying, "I believe we go on. I've had too many experiences in my life that prove to me that we continue."
Wow.
I know.
Wow. Oh, that's so perfect.
Yep. And then Demi, it said that she had long expressed interest in spirituality and metaphysical ideas, though not necessarily tied to traditional religious beliefs. And around the time that Ghost was being created and produced, she was actually exploring spiritual concepts and later became known for her connection to practices like Kabbalah and New Age philosophies. I actually remember her wearing that little ribbon or that little
Yeah,
tie.
like red. Yeah, that red.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, so she was perfect for it too. They were open-minded.
Yes.
Yeah. Who else was
Exactly.
going to play her?
Oh, Demi. Okay. These ones they're kind of in the same bucket of like, what? I can't, no. And they're kind of like the typical ones she expects during the 90s, right? Any guesses on those big 90s actresses?
Julia, Meg Ryan,
Perfect. There's two of them.
Sandra Bullock. I don't know if she was famous yet. No, I don't think
surprisingly,
so. I don't think
Nicole
she probably.
Kidman,
Oh God.
Meg Ryan, Julia Roberts, Molly Ringwald, and Michelle Pfeiffer.
Huh. Yeah, they're all great again, but not Molly for this.
Nope.
She's
Nope.
Yeah, Demi was Molly.
For
Yes.
sure. For sure.
I didn't really remember the movie at all. I hadn't seen it in 35 years. I remember I loved it, but it wasn't one of those movies I could go back and watch again. And I actually always refer to my books as Sex and the City meets Ghosts, but only because there's nothing else like it. Like I don't have
No.
that many, there's not that many comparable things. So I just say Ghost. But it wasn't a movie I watched. So I watched it again. And the only moment I really remembered was Ditto.
Yes.
Yes.
And I feel like the reason that they said that, and there had to be something that only she would know. And that's what we always talk about with signs.
Yes.
A lot of times, like if you do go to a medium, everyone's so skeptical and it's like, yeah, right. They researched me online. They looked at my social media, but there's certain things that only you would know. And that was
Yep.
one of them,
Yes,
and it was very
exactly.
meaningful to their relationship. They had just talked about it before he died about how come you never say I love you?
Yeah. And I remembered that it was in a coffee shop that she got up and she was like, he would never say I love you. And Oda Mae Brown's like, what the hell is Ditto? Ditto.
Yes. And
Oh, that
she cries.
moment.
And when she cries, I cry.
Yes.
When she was like, when right before he pushed the penny, that was the moment that, ugh. Like when she finally is like, okay, I believe you. When he pushes the penny
Yes.
and he goes up the wall with the penny. But right before that moment, when she was crying, like, why are you doing this to me? Like,
Yes.
why are you doing this to me? And like breaking down. I'm sure it's just like, I want to believe so bad, but there's just this, I just can't let myself do it. So the
Right.
moment when it happened, it was just so meaningful and just,
Yes. And then the other moment that got me was when he inhabited Oda Mae Brown's body and reached for her hand. And I'm like, I remember this being a meaningful scene, but I'm like, is that a little weird? Like I was like, this is a little weird. And then you see his hand and the music swells. And I was like, the music comes on and I was like, it got me. It got me. They kind of set you up for it being like, what is this weird scene happening? And then boom.
and that's really forward thinking too,
Yes.
because even I had to Google it. Like what I wrote in my notes, like what is that called? Like, because I know there's certain mediums that can do that. Trance mediumship possession. I've heard of it that some mediums can do that where they lend their bodies, but that's super new to me. And this is 35 years later. And I'm sure people obviously well before me have been studying this and everything. But to put that out in a movie,
Yes.
I can see how, some people
it
might
could
be
have
like,
gone the
"Ooh."
other way.
Yeah.
People could have been like, this is too weird, but thankfully it was done well. There were parts of the movie that I was like, even in the beginning, I'm watching it and I'm like, is this a bad movie? And I just don't remember. I think it's a good movie, but there were parts that I was like, it's a little cheesy. Did you think that?
Yes. I feel like it's always with just old movies, old technology.
Yes. Yes.
The acting's it's just I don't know how to describe it other than it's the times. It'd be just like our parents looking at a movie in the 50s or 60s
Yes.
and it's really cheesy. I don't know. I yeah, there's this moment of nostalgia where I don't want to believe it's a bad movie.
Right.
Like,
Right.
I just loved it so much back then, but then watching it 35 years later, you're like, it's different. It's just
That's exactly it. Yes.
yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
It's so true.
there's definitely like a plug and play of how they did movies back then.
Yeah. Some of the effects, like I was like, oh God, this is a little
Well, when they were
weird.
kissing the ghost,
Yes.
I was like, ooh, that's bad.
I was like,
Really?
that's very
She's
bad.
like,
I was like, that is very bad. Yes. That's exactly
Totally
it.
dying like, I don't remember thinking that was cheesy back then, but now I'm like,
Right. Right. Do you believe in purgatory?
no,
I don't either.
I don't think so. Like from what I've read and understand is, I mean, I've kind of heard a few things. Like everyone goes to, I guess, heaven, whatever you want to call it.
The other side,
And we always
yeah.
have this like life review. And I've heard of people being kind of in the in-between state, but it's not like hell. I still think people have the opportunity to make things better and to learn from that go around on life. And I think you maybe have to believe in past lives and reincarnation. If you don't, then yeah, maybe it's like, well, where else do you go? Like, how are you? I don't know. I don't really think I buy into the whole.
Yeah, I don't think anyone's in purgatory. I don't think anyone's stuck, and I don't think anyone should ever worry that their loved one like hasn't fully crossed over. They haven't fully passed. They have, and they're okay, and they have none of the earthly baggage they had while they were here. This is just a movie that was creative, and it worked for this. That he had to stay to find the killer, and it was it worked, but I don't think that's really how it works. And I don't think anyone watching this should ever worry that their loved one is in purgatory.
Yeah, I think that's just how we grow up, and it's a
Yes.
perfect example of the
Yes.
1990s and how in our previous conversations how we talked about like, well, you go to heaven when you die, and the bad people go to hell, and it's just an easy compartmental way to explain it. The other thing that I wrote down, and I don't I don't know how I feel about this, and it was really in the very beginning when he chose not to go to the light.
Right.
And I was like, do we have
Right.
that option? Like, do we? And then they'll come back when you're ready.
Right.
Or is it like,
Right.
I don't know, like, I mean, I've heard of near-death experiences, but I don't know that it was their term. It was more like, it's not your time. You have to come back. Like,
Right.
the people on the other side are telling you, it's not your time. You need to go back. Not like, hold on, I got to catch the bad guy first.
Exactly.
And then I'll come when I'm ready.
Right. I'll be with you in a minute.
Yeah.
Yes. I loved the old man who was in the hospital waiting
Yeah.
for his wife. And I was like, that I could buy into. I don't think he's in purgatory. I think he's on the other side. And he's like,
He's
I'm
waiting
good.
for her.
Yep. Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. So the screenwriter is Bruce Joel Rubin,
Huh.
and he's a screenwriter, a meditation teacher, and a photographer. And this is Wikipedia, so take it with a grain of salt. But it says after an LSD experience, it inspired his departure on a spiritual quest a year later. And he literally traveled the world from meditating in Greece, going to Tibet, hitchhiking through Turkey, Iran, Afghanistan, Pakistan. He lived in India, the Tibetan monastery. So he just had this crazy, after being on LSD and having this, I guess, experience, that's kind of like his awakening, apparently. And that's when he started writing shows and movies and things like that. But there isn't very many of them. And it basically, he was living in like Indiana or something, and he wrote this screenplay for Ghost, or the story. And him and his wife were like, we're going to move to LA. You know, we're just going to make that jump. And 2 weeks before they were to leave to LA, they sold their home. And on that same day, he got a call from his LA agent dropping him as a client because, quote, his work was too metaphysical and nobody wanted to make movies about ghosts.
What?
Yeah. So that's what it was. It's like, no, that's weird. No one wants ghost movies. And then it turns out that 5 nominations for Academy Awards: Best Picture or Best Original Scoreplay, Film Editing, Supporting Actress, Best Original Screenplay. It went on to, how much money did it make? $505 million it grossed worldwide, highest grossing film in 1990. And it's those people that say no one wants to talk about ghosts. And how about that, mofo?
Right, exactly.
I think there's a market for
I think there
people
might be an
talking
audience.
Yeah.
It's so interesting that his spiritual awakening, like it was drugs and then traveling the world. Ours was a little different.
Yes.
Books and
Yes.
But that I wonder if all of that helped him on the day he got that phone call. Like I think most people might have gotten that phone call and like, what did we just do? They probably were thinking like, what did we just do? But it sounds like they went ahead with it anyway. And
Yep.
he probably still believed, like, I know this will get it.
Yeah.
I know I'll be successful somehow, some way. I know I'm meant to do this. He still believed. I think probably all of that meditation maybe gave him like this strength of spirit to be like, this is going to be okay.
Yeah.
I need
Yeah.
to meditate more.
I do too. But yeah, clearly it worked out. I believe, I didn't write it down, but I think it was the week or two after they arrived, he ended up getting a new agent and things
God.
took off from there. But
Thank
yeah, I mean,
God.
I'm sure, they Hollywoodized some of his writings and
Yes.
stuff. It was very
Yeah.
forward thinking back then.
What an interesting guy.
Yeah.
I'm so curious to learn more about him. Yeah, I'm going to look him up.
For
I wonder,
sure.
is he still alive?
I believe so. I think
Oh,
they're in their
interesting.
80s.
Aww.
Yeah. Third highest grossing film of all time.
Of all time?
This is according to Wikipedia. I don't know if it's like how recent
Yeah.
that figure is.
Yeah, but still.
That's incredible. That means that it touched so many people.
Yes. Yes.
know?
Yeah. We're not weird.
It was kind of
Everyone
like
else
magic.
is.
Yes.
Yes. There are people who, yes, want to hear these stories and
Yeah,
consume
but-
this content.
Right. And then honestly, I can't think of anything after it, though, that really hit the
Me
same way.
neither. That's why I'm like, why wasn't there like movies like it in 35 years? There hasn't been.
None
There
that
should
I
be
can
like a
think
whole
of.
metaphysical genre, and there's not.
Maybe we should start
Yeah.
something.
We should start a
Maybe we
production
should co-produce
company.
something. Maybe we'll
Exactly.
turn your books into some movies. Wouldn't that be
I
fun?
think that should happen.
Okay, let's put that into the universe.
Yes. You heard it here first.
Yeah.
Yes.
I thought it was interesting too about him learning to move objects.
I thought so too. I misremembered or didn't remember the movie so much so that when he was on the train initially, I'm like, why is that guy able to break glass? And then we learn how he uses his energy, which is what this is all about, energy.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah.
And who do you think the guy is? Do you think he was in some kind of the guy that was thrown on the tracks?
I think they were implying that he had, I don't know what words we can say, but anyway,
Unalived?
yes, unalived himself. And we know that that doesn't mean that you don't go to the other side. Everyone goes to the
so
other
they were
side.
basically just saying
But
he
they
was
were
stuck
saying,
there.
because, and I felt like he had shame about doing that and couldn't move himself on. And so he was stuck there. It doesn't
He was
work that way,
angry
anyone
about it.
listening.
Yes, that's not
But
how it works.
that was their
Yeah.
impression. Yeah.
Again, I felt like that was a little bit Hollywood, like
Totally.
the standard kind of black and white thinking on how
Yeah.
it works, and just like Carl going to, the bad guy place.
Right,
It's
exactly.
just
And the way we used to talk about people who unalive themselves, it was such a different way of speaking about it back then. How far we've come in 35 years, thank God.
right.
Yeah.
The other thing that I thought was just because of my crazy experiences is Oda Mae and how she never had any ability at all.
Yes.
And then all of a sudden she did. And it was clairaudient. She could hear him. She couldn't see him. She couldn't touch him. She couldn't feel him, but she had the one sense, the clairaudient sense.
Right.
And I just wonder, I don't know. Like it all kind of came at once for her. Like when it rains, it pours. All of a sudden, all the spirits could get to her at that point.
Right.
But to my understanding, everyone has this ability. So I guess in the movie, what made it that moment? Was it because of him? Was it because of?
I think it was
Don't know.
because of him. I got the
Yeah.
sense that she, it's kind of like meeting your soulmate. She met her soul ghost. If he was
Yeah.
the right one to come through to her. And then it opened the floodgates and she had more confidence in herself and what she could do. And so, she was always like, my mom had the ability, her mom did. She never believed in herself. And then all of a sudden, once you believe in yourself, they're all going to show up at the front door. But it had to be him.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I love how because I've been learning too of creating boundaries, and that she was doing that when all of a sudden her whole little office was flooded with, all these
Yes.
ghosts and their family members. And she's just like, back off, just hold on.
So you have received, I know, audio messages. And when
Yeah.
you relayed the message, it went away. Were you scared at first?
Gosh, I don't know that I was scared, but I was very overwhelmed. Like, what is
Yeah.
happening? What is happening? I don't know
Yeah.
what to do, and panicking because it's like they're trying to communicate with you, and I'm like, I don't know how to do that. I don't know what that is, and I don't know how to turn it off and on and everything. But then once I kind of conveyed the message, it kind of all went away. But it's still overwhelming because I don't know what kind of ability I have, because I'm going through all these clairaudient, claircognizant, clairsentience, clairvoyance. I've done a few of those, and so I'm
Yes.
like, oh my goodness, like I had no idea, but I don't know how to make it happen on my terms. It just kind of happens sporadically.
I wonder if you, is there medium school? Like, if you could talk to a medium, they could tell you, do this to hone it if you wanted to.
Yeah, I know,
Yeah.
and that's where I'm just like, maybe I do. I have a curiosity now,
Yeah.
and so
Yeah.
I'm kind of like, I don't know. I'm dancing around.
Yes, you definitely
Let me see.
should.
Let me see if
You're
I
like-
can hone it in.
I'm doing 2 podcasts working and Right. You're like, when's the right time to become a
Uh,
medium? But
I
yes.
know. And what does that mean? And just being
Yeah.
scared because there's
Yeah.
still that stigma of like that's weird.
Mm-hmm.
Are you lying?
Yeah.
Are you full of BS? Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Like learning to trust yourself and the messages you're getting. And yeah, I
Yep.
could imagine it being like, am I going crazy? Yeah.
Yeah. What was interesting too is that Molly also saw him and heard him at the end.
Yes. Yes. So what was that about that his energy could finally, it was finally strong enough for them both to see them? Because Oda Mae couldn't see him previously. And they could both see him now and they could both hear him.
I don't know if
Was it
that
an
was like just
energy thing?
Hollywood or if that was like him trying to convey something.
Yeah, his last burst of energy before he
Yeah.
went to the other
Because like
side. Yeah.
all of a sudden the light comes shining on him and it felt very Hollywood, like,
Yes.
okay, they're here to take you and
Right.
you know, tears are flowing at this part, like, oh, don't say goodbye. It's just
Right.
hammer just being hysterical in the movie theater at that
Hysterical.
point. Oh,
I could picture the director being like, listen, like, I know your rules are that she can't see him and that only Otome can hear him, but for
yeah,
purposes
we
of
got to make it.
making a movie. Right.
Yeah. I mean, because I don't know that many people that can actually see their loved ones. Maybe. I mean, I don't know. Have you heard too many people? I feel
Um,
like signs are the easiest ones.
yes. Hmm.
Hearing things or smelling things. I've heard smelling a
Hmm.
lot
Yeah.
or voices, like one word here and there. Like I heard him say mama. I heard the
Yeah.
cat, whatever it was. But I don't really hear very often someone going, oh, yeah, I saw someone.
Right.
Not very
Same.
often.
Same. I know in a reading, a medium can get like, can kind of see someone kind of the way it is in the movie, like sort of fuzzy, but they can make
Yeah.
out like this person looked like this.
Well, even like the famous, what is it, Tyler Henry, I think he just sees symbols,
Yes.
like
Yeah.
not actual people, but
Right.
symbols and signs and things like
Right.
that.
My grandmother heard, I know people get a whoosh. Like my grandmother heard a whoosh and then she heard her name,
Hmm.
like my grandfather calling her name. And like the door rattled. So she like went to the front door thinking someone was there. And she's like, I know he like, he said my name and I heard a whoosh. So I've heard of that too. She's not the only one who experienced that. But yeah, seeing someone that's very rare. But it's Hollywood, the
I mean,
magic
I've
of
heard of
Hollywood.
little kids, seeing
Yes,
things. I feel
actually,
like they're
that's true.
more, yeah, open
Yes,
to seeing things. And
yes,
obviously animals, like I think
yes.
that they do.
100%. Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. I don't
You
know.
have dogs, right?
I do have a dog, and I'm trying to remember if I told you in our interview about him seeing my nephew.
No.
Oh my gosh. It was the most horrifying thing.
Oh, no.
I was so scared. So back then, he was just a little puppy, and we know my nephew had just passed, and we were experiencing all these like little signs, like, your phone going off and the lights flickering and things like that. And at the time, we had a basement in our house, and my ex, he would snore so bad that I
Oh,
would
no.
just go downstairs in the basement and sleep with Boogie, my dog. But in the middle of the night, between 3 and 3:30, my dog, and he starts barking so loud and like on alert, like he's looking at something, and I flew out of bed and I'm like, oh my gosh, I thought someone was in my house, and it's pitch black, and I'm looking, and he's just like on the end of my bed just staring at my door and like, "Bah," and he's looking at something, and I'm looking, and as I'm looking, I'm like, my door is wide open, something opened my door. And so I fly out of bed, and I'm like, no, 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 like they had to turn my knob and open the door. And I'm thinking, there's no way that door was all the way like shut. So I fly out of bed thinking someone's in my house, like someone's, trying to rob us or something. But I'm looking at all the windows, and I'm looking in the bathroom, and I go into the living room down there, and it's nothing. It's snowing outside, and I'm like, my heart's beating. I'm like, what in the heck was that? So I start going up the stairs. And as I go up the stairs, I see a cat meowing on our deck on the main floor.
Yeah.
And it's cold, and he's shivering and he's meowing. And it's the cat that I've been trying. I thought it was a stray cat, and I've been trying for months to woo this cat. And the thing that made me know immediately it was Bradley is because Bradley's a cat guy. He's like an animal person like me. Our whole family would rescue animals. take in the strays. And I think he was trying to get my attention, like, hey, Amber, like the kitty's sitting out cold in the snow. Can you please let him in and give him some food?
Yes.
And I just knew it was one of those just all knowing kind of, I don't know how to explain it. I just knew the minute I saw that cat going up the stairs, I was like, oh, Bradley, dude. And then I was like, don't do that ever again, though. Right. Not cool. Scarier than heck. I don't like that. And it's never happened again. But I was like, do not open doors. Don't do it. I love this so much. I think this was such a fun, interesting. I don't know that anyone else is doing that. Yes, people review movies and stuff, but I don't know that it's in a spiritual sense. So if you're on board, I would love to reach out and ask our listeners if they have a story, a movie, a book that they want us to review and give our feedback on. Leave us a message.
Yes.
Go to our Instagrams, our websites. I mean, we're pretty easy to find at this point, but let us know what you guys want to hear and we'll put it on the calendar.
We'll watch it. We'll read it when we'll review it.
Yes.
Perfect. Thank you so much for listening to Signs from the Other Side. You can find me, Fern Ronay, on all social media at Fern Ronay, Ronay. I love hearing from you and I love hearing your stories of signs. And if you would like to hear more episodes of this show, please be sure to subscribe in Apple Podcasts. Thank you again and sweet dreams.